The evening rush at the Arizona grocery store felt heavier than usual. Carts clattered across the tiles, impatient customers shifted from foot to foot, and fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. At register 3, an old Native American man stood quietly, holding only 3 items: bread, beans, and a small bottle of water. His clothes were worn, his shoulders thin, and his hands trembled as he searched for a few missing coins. The new manager, Mark Pruitt, already irritated by the crowd, marched toward him with sharp, echoing footsteps that made several people look up from their phones. Mark didn't hesitate to raise his voice. "Sir, if you can't pay, step aside. Don't waste our time." His tone cut through the line like a blade, turning heads and freezing the air. The old man lowered his eyes in shame, his voice barely audible as he whispered, I had more. "I'm sorry." He wasn't being slow or difficult, he was simply struggling, and the humiliation drained what little pride he had left. Before he could gather himself, Mark signaled to security, eager to push the man away and restore his illusion of efficiency. But before the guard could reach him, a voice from behind spoke gently. "I've got it." Ryan Hayes, a young civil engineer in dusty work boots, pulled out his wallet and paid for the man's groceries without hesitation. The old man blinked, stunned, his eyes filling with quiet tears. "Thank you, you have saved my night," he whispered, clutching the bag as if it were something precious. Something about his frail posture tugged at Ryan's conscience. With a concerned look, he asked softly, "Sir, do you live nearby? Let me give you a ride home. You look exhausted." The man hesitated, as if unsure whether to trust him, but eventually nodded. The drive to the outskirts of town was silent except for the hum of the truck engine. The sun was dipping low, painting the desert sky with shades of orange and gold. When they arrived at a small, aging trailer surrounded by sand and scattered debris, the old man thanked Ryan again. But as Ryan turned to leave, he heard something, faint, irregular breathing coming from behind a wooden shed beside the trailer. It was too soft to be an animal, too human to ignore. His instincts kicked in, urging him to check. He walked toward the shed slowly, each step filling him with an unexplainable unease. The old man followed behind, his movements stiff, his eyes filled with worry. The door creaked loudly when Ryan pushed it open, and the dim interior was barely lit by a crack of fading sunlight. Then he saw her. A small Apache girl, no older than 7, crouched in the corner. Dirt streaked her cheeks, fear widened her eyes, and her ribs pressed through her shirt as if her body had been fighting hunger for far too long. She didn't speak, she only stared at Ryan, unsure whether he was friend or danger. Ryan froze, the shock hitting him hard. "Who is she?" he asked, his voice roughened by disbelief. The old man swallowed, his hands shaking. "I found her in the desert, alone," he said softly. "She was barely alive. I didn't know what else to do." His voice cracked, filled with guilt and fear. He wasn't hiding her out of cruelty. He was terrified of authorities, of misunderstanding, of being blamed. "Please," he whispered, "don't tell anyone. I'm trying, but I have nothing. No food. No help." His desperation was real, and Ryan felt the weight of the moment settle heavily on his chest. The girl shifted slightly, clutching a piece of torn fabric like it was the only thing keeping her safe. Her eyes flicked between the two men, reading their faces, calculating danger. Ryan's heart ached as he knelt down, making sure not to get too close. "Hey," he said softly, "you're safe now." But even as he said the words, he knew safety was far from certain. Something terrible must have happened for a child to end up wandering the Arizona desert alone. Something urgent. Something dangerous. And whatever the story was, it was far from over. If you want, I can now write part 2, 700 words, in the same. Ryan drove home with the child sitting silently in the back seat, clutching her knees tightly to her chest. She didn't cry, didn't talk, didn't even look out the window. She simply whispered one word when he asked her name. Home. It wasn't an answer, more like a plea. When they reached his house, Ryan warmed up some soup, cut soft bread into tiny pieces, and placed the bowl gently in front of her. She ate slowly, as if unsure when she would see food again. Every so often, she looked up at him with watchful, guarded eyes. The next morning, he contacted local authorities, hoping someone had reported a missing Apache child. But no one had. They told him to keep her safe, to wait for updates, and to report any changes. He nodded, but after he hung up, The house felt strangely still. The girl sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her small frame swallowed by the fabric. Ryan realized she didn't need officials, she needed comfort. So he bought her new clothes, soft blankets, and a small toy eagle with brown wings and a stitched smile. The toy eagle became the only thing she held onto. She didn't speak, didn't explore, didn't play. She simply observed the world from behind her dark, cautious eyes. Sometimes Ryan caught her staring through the window at the pine trees, as if waiting for someone, or something, to appear. He tried talking to her in gentle tones, telling her stories about the desert, about his work, about the stars. But her only response was silence, heavy and unbroken. Still, he didn't push. He sensed she had seen something terrible, something that made silence feel safer than words. 4 days passed in a quiet routine, meals, soft music, careful conversations, and long moments of stillness. Ryan had begun to wonder if she would ever speak again. But on the fourth morning, just as sunlight streamed across the living room and the scent of brewing coffee filled the air, a sudden, forceful knock shattered the calm. 3 loud thuds, sharp, urgent, echoing through every room. Bam, bam, bam. Ryan felt an unexpected jolt in his chest. Whoever was outside wasn't just knocking. They were demanding to be heard. He moved toward the door slowly, unsure of what waited on the other side. When he opened it, his breath caught. Standing on his porch were 3 Apache women. Their long traditional dresses fluttered in the desert breeze, their faces worn from exhaustion, fear, and something deeper, desperation. Dust covered their shoes, their braids, even the edges of their shawls. It was clear they had traveled far and hard. The eldest woman stepped forward, her voice trembling as she spoke. "We're looking for a missing child, our niece." Her words hung in the air with the weight of an entire family's grief. Ryan felt his throat tighten as he slowly stepped aside. Behind him, the little girl peeked out from the hallway, her small fingers gripping the wall. The moment she saw the women, her eyes filled instantly with tears, not fear, but recognition. Her breathing hitched, her body trembling with emotion she had kept buried for days. One of the younger women covered her mouth, gasping softly, whispering a prayer under her breath. The other pressed a shaking hand to her heart. The eldest woman's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "My child, we have searched everywhere." Her voice cracked, and she took a hesitant step inside. The girl walked forward slowly, clutching the toy eagle tightly against her chest. Then, suddenly, she ran, her small legs carrying her straight into their open arms. The 3 women embraced her with cries that were both painful and relieved, their hands trembling as they touched her face, her hair, her shoulders, as if making sure she was truly real. They murmured soft Apache words, soothing her, thanking her, welcoming her spirit home. Ryan watched silently, overwhelmed by the emotion unfolding before him, feeling as though he was witnessing something sacred. When their tears eased, the eldest woman turned to Ryan. "We walked for days," she said. "No signal. No cars. Only hope. She wandered away from our land. We feared," her voice faltered. "We feared she was gone." She looked at him with deep gratitude. "Thank you for giving her safety when we could not reach her." The girl clung to her aunt's dress, but before leaving, she looked back at Ryan and whispered the same words she had said on the first night, only this time, it carried peace instead of fear. Home. And Ryan realized then, kindness given to a stranger had returned a whole family's world to its rightful place.